Hell yeah. Wyatt begins in like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yo! Welcome to Wyatt. And I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Grr, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof. Hi. I said hi. To all my YouTubers out there, if you like what you hear and if you like what you see, just click those subscribe buttons at all of the bottoms of all of your screens. And because I knows you loves me, I knows you do, I just knows you do, leave me some likes. And because I always like to know what you're thinking, give me some feedback. You know what I'm saying? I know you do. Anyway, today's Wyatt shines a spotlight on the talented and tantalizing gay pulp author, Mr. Gideon Rathbone. He's one hell of a prolific scribe with 17 books under his belt. Now, we're going to discuss Monarch of the Bayou, his most recent series of novels, and we're going to talk about other things as well. Are you ready? I say let's get it on. So, without further ado, Wyatt welcomes gay pulp author Gideon Rathbone. Hey, don't you just love that name? Because I do. He's one hell of a prolific scribe, y'all, having penned the popular Monarch of the Bayou series of novels. So talk at me, Gideon, my man. How the hell are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for taking the time to drop by. Wyatt, I love your work, by the way.
Thanks.
Listen, first question I've got to ask you is this. Is Gideon Rathbone your real name, your government name, or is it a nom de plume? I mean, because it makes you sit up and I thought so because it's a great one though, man, because it makes you sit up and take notice. I love it. And, you know, it's got that little mystery vibe in it, you know, maybe even that little stalker vibe like this, like that. So, you know, I would sit up and take notice. But anyway, let me be a little serious right now. You are one hell of a prolific talent. You have written at least 17 novels, man. That's quite an achievement. They all have catchy titles. They include The Devil's Addiction, Starved, The Inheritance, Liar's Creed, Miami Hustle, and the 2 separate series of novels, The Masters of Willowhurst and Monarch of the Bayou. And to top it off, you've also written short stories. So how do you have the time to do all of that?
I don't really sleep that much. Also, I work at a library, so I got time to,
neat. Cool. Well, listen, with the 17 novels, Gideon, how many years did it take you to complete them all? I mean, during what space of time?
Well, I started writing under the Gideon Rathbone name it was late 2016.
Oh, okay.
So at that point, I didn't really have a full-time job, so I had much more time to write. So majority of those books and short stories I wrote were between 2016 and 2019. So since I've had a full-time job and more responsibility, I've been kind of slowing down my productivity.
Well, I mean, but man, listen, 17? Lord, that's a lot. That's really a lot. Listen, how do you deal with writer's block? Because when I was researching you, I've also flipped through Goodreads, and I think it was a question from one of your fans that asked you about that. How do you deal with writer's block? And I found your answer to be really very interesting.
I don't exactly remember what I wrote back because that was a couple of years ago, but I'm really interested in history, and also I do the Dick Wolf method, the guy who writes Law and Order, created Law and Order.
Right.
I just look in the news and read a lot, so there's always something to pick and choose from. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. I adore your work. I find it strikingly descriptive, dynamic, gripping, raw, and compelling. I mean, it makes the reader feel like a fly on the wall, taking in the happenings and what's going on. And man, you come right out of the gate with your stuff. So I mean, you just you barrel right out of the gate. I love that. So may I read an example for our audience to prove my point?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rathbone. I appreciate that. Okay, here we go. Now, everybody, this is from the prologue of book 1 of the Monarch of the Bayou, your most recent, getting your most recent series of novels, and hopefully I can do justice to the prose. So let me take a crack at it. Are you going to fuck me, or are we going to keep playing this game? Cabbage smiled. He enjoyed being challenged. This bastard had guts and he loved that he wasn't afraid to take him on. He unceremoniously turned the hustler around and spat in his hand. He had been using hair grease as a lubricant, but there wasn't any time to go and fetch it. He needed to have him in that instant. The young man moaned as Cabbage pushed himself inside. The hole he was invading for the umpteenth time was still warm, wet, and tight. Shit! Come on, you son of a bitch! Fuck me! The cool breeze blew about them, sending a surge of omnipotence through Cabbage's body. As he plowed and pistoned the whore, he felt all-powerful and indestructible. Nothing could stand in his way at that moment, not even God. Let me tell you something. I had to get that out. Let me tell you something. That was powerful, dude.
Thanks.
Now, we gonna delve into Monarch of the Bayou a little bit later, but that was some powerful shit.
Thank you.
You know what? After I read that, I did like this. I said, what the what? Baby.
I don't like to bore my readers, so
listen, there was nothing boring about that. Let me tell you. And my peoples, listen, that's just the icing on the case. You have got to, if you haven't bought this man's books yet, you got to buy them. I mean, because it makes you go like this. Anyway, look, we travel as authors, we travel in similar genres. So let me ask you this, Gideon. Why do you incorporate steamy and salacious sex scenes in your work? Is the erotica component just the icing on the cake and not the core or heart of the story?
It's more or less the icing on the cake nowadays.
Good.
In the last 3 years, I've decided more or less the icing on the cake because I found when I just wrote straight erotica, I would run out of adjectives. I come from a more of a literary background. When I was in college, I read a lot of literary stuff. And I realized, like in my late 20s, like, I don't really care. I like actual stories that have actual plot and there's some kind of character development. I don't like characters that are very symbolic and the story is very, symbolic. So I like, so I try to lean more towards the sex being the icing on the cake. Right. It's going to be very good icing. I'm not going to hold anything back, but there's going to be an actual story and plot there and actual fully developed characters.
Mm-hmm. That's my philosophy too, because I've read some authors who really the erotica, they were using that as the backbone, the foundation of the story. And I don't think that's a good way to go. Mm-hmm. Also too, which I find very interesting, man, in your work is that you inject mysticism and historical and urban fantasy. Tell us about that.
Well, I've always liked urban fantasy, even from a very young age. And once again, the story, I don't know if you mentioned, the story is set in the early 20th century. Right. And I got the idea for Monarch of the Bayou, that was the summer of 2017. Mm-hmm. And I didn't publish this story. I didn't start publishing any part of the story until 2023, October 2023. Okay. because the story never left my brain. It just refused to leave. And I
Hmm.
marinated on it for a long time. It wasn't until now, almost 2 years ago, that I decided to like finally put pen to paper.
Right.
So I've always liked urban fantasy. I've always enjoyed anything historical from like the early 20th century, the 19th century. I just fully invest myself in any of that, even if it comes to fiction, nonfiction. So I did a lot of research for Monarch of the Bayou just to make sure I had everything accurate, make sure I had all the parishes correct and so forth. So as you can see, I
Mhm.
chose hair grease, not lube, in that part you just read. So
Yeah, I kind of caught that. You know what I'm saying? But I did, and I like it. You know, with my freaky mind, I like that stuff. We're, look, we're gonna get into Monarch of the Bayou a little bit later, but what I want to do now is you say that you are a natural born storyteller and your passion for the written word goes back to your childhood. So I
Mhm.
want us to sashay through the corridors of time so the Wyatt audience can know all about your business because we're nosy like that. So you ready?
Go ahead.
Where were you born and raised, my friend?
I'm born and bred South Jersey. I was born in Voorhees. I've
Oh,
lived my majority of my life in Glassboro,
okay.
which is South Jersey. Uh, I'm still in Glassboro. Uh, that's pretty much it.
Well, that's concise.
I mean,
That's succinct. I love it. Okay, now here's a question, man, that I love to ask my guests because sometimes it can open up a window into who the person is today. Here's my question. What was Gideon like as a little boy, a little nipper? Give us like three characteristics or attributes that best describe you back in the day.
precocious. I had a big mouth.
Oh,
I still kind of have
oh.
a big mouth that gets me into trouble. And when I was younger, I used to lie a lot because I was so wrapped up in, yeah, I was really wrapped up in the stuff I read and stuff I would watch on TV. So, I would always make stuff up. So, yeah.
Mhm. Well, you know what? Actually, that's a good thing because we need as authors, as successful authors, we need that I guess what that voracious, luscious imagination so that we can tell our stories. So, we'll let you pass on that. That's okay. That's all right. Anyway, let's fast forward and examine your work as a novelist. I want to shine that spotlight on Monarch of the Bayou. First of all, tell us how many books are in that series and the titles.
Well, right now, there's only two out right now,
Okay.
but I have another, I would say another possibly three coming out.
Oh,
I don't know the
wow.
titles of them yet, though, but I know where the story's going to go.
Okay. Will they be coming out concurrently all at the same time
Most
or
likely not,
staggered?
because it would just sparingly it'll come out like that. Hopefully, I'll have
Mm.
another one out by hopefully this summer or this fall. It depends on
Hey.
how my schedule works out and if my
Mhm.
brain wants to act correctly. Because I have a crap ton of ideas for stuff. I outline a lot of stuff. I write down a whole lot of stuff for future novels and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's all about if my brain wants to just focus on Monarch of the Bayou book or some other book that I have already outlined. So I'm a little bit
Okay.
of a scatterbrain creatively.
That's okay. Listen, as long as you get the job done. And look, now look, when the next one drops, we expect you back here at Wyatt to talk about it.
Oh, great. Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
No problem. Now, listen, everybody. Monarch of the Bayou has received strong reviews, and I'm going to read one from Goodreads because I love reading reviews. Okay, I'm going to quote this. This author writes super attractive intellectual stories with a wide vocabulary. I always learn things, and I consulted Google more than once. Overall, A stunning combination of strongly crafted characters, a historical plot, black magic, black culture, wealth, hurt, sensuality, and sex. A story where slavery was removed and a lot of white men weren't happy about it. So be aware of straight on racism. End quote. Do you care to comment on that, my brother?
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. And I love that review. I like reviews that, it doesn't matter if they're negative or positive, as long as they're very intellectually, put together. I don't
Right.
like reviews where it's just like, oh, this sucks. But, like I very much agree. And I do not pull any punches when it comes to anything historical or right. If there's going to be racism there, if the time period is going to be accurate, I'm not going to clean anything up.
Well, you're being truthful, you're being authentic because when you
Mm-hmm.
don't do that, you really the readers get a disservice that you're not
Yeah.
really serving your reader. I think that's great. Give us a full Monty on Monarch of the Bayou. Break it down for us, Gideon. What's it all about?
Well, it's really three stories all together in one. It's kind of like I've
Oh,
heard people who have read it before it came out. Like it's kind of like a like American Horror Story. See the
oh,
season of the witches they had of that in New Orleans. But basically the main character, well, one of the main characters' name is Nathan. He
okay.
is a product of a biracial union, and he has recently escaped his father. He had to leave his twin sister behind, though, because of
Ooh,
reasons you'll find out eventually in the series. And
okay.
he goes to New Orleans to come across his godfather, who is a excuse me, uh, what are those people called? A voodoo priest, one of the best
Ooh,
in New Orleans.
oh,
And his godfather, the voodoo priest, he also runs a male brothel on the
okay.
side that's in the woods outside of New Orleans. And, it all goes from there. You find out the backstory of Nathan, you find the backstory of his godfather, and also there is a vampire, him and his progeny who live in New Orleans. And you find the backstory of them as well eventually in the series, and it just goes from there, like, and so forth.
Well, there's a lot going on, my brother. I
Without
like
giving
that.
without giving away too much.
I get it. Did you, when you were writing it, did you draw on any personal experiences, or like that?
For Monarch of the Bayou, personal experiences, not really.
Okay.
Most of that came from research, and also excuse me,
Sure.
my mother's mother. She grew up in South Carolina back in the 30s.
Oh, okay.
And also, I heard a lot of stories. My dad used to tell me about his father, who grew up in Georgia and who was born in 1902. So, from
Oh,
both sides of my family, I heard a lot of stories about the South back in the day. So it wasn't that hard to put that together because I heard it my entire life. So, but when it came to like the voodoo aspect and certain elements, like there's a character who's a friend of the voodoo priest
uh,
who's a woman who she's really into voodoo. She's a voodoo priestess. I put that assume that came from reading a lot about Marie Laveau, who
uh,
was popular during I guess was she popular? She was popular from like slavery on through Reconstruction and afterwards.
mhm,
But mostly, there's not really nothing personal in that series.
mhm.
That's mostly just research and my own imagination.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. Um, I love to ask this question of other authors. Gideon, what is your writer's process, the creative process like for you? And is there anything, what's the question? I know what I want to ask you. Is there anything surprising that your readers, is there anything surprising that your readers would find out about your writer's process? Sorry about that.
The only thing I could find surprising is the fact that I write the book twice, because I write the rough draft. Well, it depends on what, because I've noticed with certain books, like there are some books that'll come to me fully formed. The characters are fully formed. The plot's fully formed. All I have to do is just to transcribe what I'm seeing before me. And then there are some books, it's like literally like pulling teeth. So you just have to go with the flow with how things go. And it surprises me where some characters end up. But the actual process is I write my rough drafts on a manual typewriter. I can't do it directly to a computer, the rough draft, because for some reason there's some kind of like disconnect for me for that. So I write the whole rough draft on a typewriter. Then I do like a rest for like about a week. And then I go back and transcribe the rough draft manuscript that I typewritten to the computer. That way I can get out any like plot idiosyncrasies and stuff like that. And then after I transcribe it to the computer, then I go back again and then edit it.
Oh, interesting.
That way I can probably try to get out more stuff. And then eventually I have someone read it to see if there's anything I've missed.
That is really interesting. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I like series of novels. You also write a series called The Masters of Willowhurst. And that was also very popular. Break that down for us and tell us what that's about as well.
Well, originally that wasn't supposed to be a series. It was just supposed to be the first book, which is Masters of Willowhurst. And this person who was helping me promote that book at the time says, you got to write a sequel. You got to write a sequel. Because he liked the book. He liked the first book so much. And at the time, I couldn't think of a sequel. So I did a prequel. So book 2 is a prequel to book 1.
Okay.
But basically, the first book is about a love story between a slave and his master, which I've gotten a lot of heat for, even though if you look back in history, that happened a lot back in the day.
It did. True.
And I don't know why everyone now wants to just deny history, even though there's evidence of that. But, to each their own. And book 2, it's not so much book 1's very much a romance.
Right.
And that's one of those books that came to me fully formed right off the bat. Like the characters are fully formed. The names of the characters are fully formed. The plot was fully formed. It was just me just sitting back and just transcribing those before me. And I wrote that book in about a week.
A week?
I wrote the first Masters of Willowhurst book, the rough draft, in a week.
How many pages is that book published? How many pages is it?
Published, I believe it's like somewhere around 90. But the rough draft manuscript was like about close to 100. So
that's amazing.
That one was easy to write.
Wait a minute. Let me ask you this. Okay, it took you a week. Are we talking about from from plotting it to writing it to editing it to your finished product?
No, we're just talking about the rough draft.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you did say rough draft earlier.
Just the rough draft.
Right. I was just blown away by the whole week thing that it kind of, got it. That's still amazing. Yow.
I had the time. That was one of those books. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you please.
I was just going to say it's one of those books where I literally, like I said before, I decided to transcribe was right in front of me. Like I was doing like 8 to 9 hour days just writing.
All I can say is yowza, baby. So how many books are in the series Masters of Willowhurst?
There's 2 right now, but I have another 2, maybe 3 plotted out.
Wow, that's great.
It all depends on, because I've noticed a lot of people have not read book 2.
Right.
Because my promoter, for some reason, won't touch that book with a 10-foot pole.
Why?
I have no clue why. They promoted the first one and they loved the first one, but for some reason they never got around to reading the second one. So it's like the second, in my opinion, the second one's better than the first one. And it's not a romance. It's more or less like an antebellum soap opera, more or less. Because
Okay.
there's a lot of sex and backstabbing in the second one. So
Well, kudos to sex and backstabbing, baby. That gives you rich drama.
true, very true.
Wow. That's great. I have a question for you. You have women writing, gay male on male romance erotica. What is your opinion about that? I mean, can a woman really write that type of genre and it really resonates and be compelling to gay men, same gender loving men?
There are some female writers where I've read their stuff, and I'm like, okay, you're not trying to fetishize it, you know?
Right.
Like you're trying to stay true to what it is. You've actually asked some questions. You've actually, did some research, and so forth. And then there are some where you read it, it's like you're just trying to
Right.
you're trying to get reads, you're trying to get likes, you're just trying to pander. You can those are female authors who write just to try to pander. They're not necessarily writing for gay men. They're more or less writing just for the women who like that genre.
Aha. Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit here and say that all women as a monolith cannot write, that stuff. Because I've read some, like for example, there's one author I've read. She's very popular, J.R. Ward. She writes about vampires and stuff like that. There's one
Oh, yeah, yeah.
book that she wrote that was like gay, and I read it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, all right, all right. You didn't hold back. All right.
Well, I got to read her stuff then. Okay. Okay. I've got a really fun question for you. Okay. Let's say, for example, Gideon, that you are planning this elaborate dinner party, right? All the bells and whistles. And then all of a sudden, like poof, like magic, you could invite three authors that are deceased from the last century, the 20th century. Who would those three authors be, and why would you invite them?
I would invite F. Scott Fitzgerald. I would also invite James Baldwin.
Ooh.
And then it's a toss up between either Jackie Collins or Harold Robbins.
Oh, that's a hell of a mix there. I mean, because you got the first one was, I'm sorry,
F. Scott Fitzgerald.
yeah, back in the 20s, right? And then you got James Baldwin. That's nice. Okay, so why would you invite all of them, those three?
F. Scott Fitzgerald, I like his prose, the way he writes stuff. Like all his books, like you can say like there's an actual plot, and there's actual
Right.
characters. It's not like what like typical fiction of that era where it's just all symbolism and so forth necessarily. And also the way he writes, it flows. I don't know if you notice with my stuff, I try to get my stuff to flow.
It does. Yeah, your stuff does
So
flow. Yeah.
like I also he has no problems with using $20 words that it doesn't feel out of place. So I like his story structure. I like his writing structure. So I like that.
Okay.
James Baldwin is the same thing. His stuff also flows. I like his story structure, but also he's able to provide depth without you having to like really critique it that hard.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And he's honest. He keeps it straight up with the honesty. So him. And a toss up between Jackie Collins and Harold Robbins is because I like trash. Like I've noticed, like
Okay now.
because like I like Harold Robinson's earlier stuff is really good.
Yeah.
Later on, like after like 1960, it kind of like peters out, it comes off the same thing.
Right.
Kind of like the same thing with Jackie Collins. Her early stuff is really good, but I like I'm sorry, but I like a whole bunch of sex and backstabbing and manipulation.
Because I love soap operas, like particularly nighttime soap operas.
Yeah.
Dallas,
Yeah.
Dynasty, yes,
Yes. Yes.
Definitely. Yes, yes. That's the stuff that I love, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we are kindred spirits where that's concerned. You got to have the twists and turns and the cliffhangers and
Yeah.
listen, the good trash is over the top but grounded in reality.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, my brother, I love it. So let me ask you, what other projects do you have going on for 2025? And you have any appearances, that sort of thing?
No appearances. I haven't gotten that far yet. But
Okay.
right now I'm still plotting out the third book for Monarch of the Bayou.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
still plotting that out. But
Mhm.
the last since 2020, since COVID, I've been trying to finish the third book of the Masters of Willowhurst series.
Ah, okay.
That's a book like I know where it's going to go. Because it follows three different characters. There's two characters from the second book that are going to be main characters in this book.
Okay. Okay.
And just to let you just a behind the scenes thing, there was one character in that book. I knew how two of the three characters, how their story was going to end. There was one character I had no idea how his story was going to end.
Okay.
And whenever that book comes out, I'm just letting you know, I didn't know how his story was going to end until chapter 12. When I wrote chapter 12 of that book.
Ah,
And when you read chapter 12, you'll understand when you read the end of it, you're like, okay, now it makes sense why. Okay, yeah. But it wasn't until after I wrote chapter 12 of that book, I was like, oh, now I know how this character's story is going to end. All right, now it makes more sense. But I've been working on that book for COVID was 2020. So yeah, almost 5 years. I mean, it's not like I don't know what's going to happen. It's just a sense of like time and so forth.
right.
And so, yeah, I've been working on that one, but I have a crap ton of outlines for books that I eventually am going to get around to writing. So yeah, I have a whole bibliography in my head right now of stuff I want to write that hasn't come out yet.
Well, you're Mr. Prolific, so what can we say? You know what I'm saying?
I try to be.
You're doing it. But listen, how can we find your books? How can we grab copies of Masters of Willowhurst and Monarch of the Bayou and your other works?
It's all on Amazon.
Okay, cool.
And
Cool,
it's
cool.
all under Amazon, not Amazon Prime, Amazon. I forgot what the name of that thing is called, but you can basically, if you sign up for the program, you can read it for free.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah,
So
that's true. Hmm.
yeah, so yeah, so if you are signed up for that program and you read it and you don't like it, you're not cheated out your money. So
Right. Good old Amazon. Good old Amazon. Okay, well, Gideon, how do us grown folk connect with you, follow you? Give us, please, all of your social media.
well, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is Gideon.Rathbone2. On Facebook, you just pretty much just type in my name on there and you can find me. You can find my fan page or you can find my actual Instagram account and just become friends with me or just like my page.
Okay. Well, Mr. Gideon Rathbone, and I love that name, Gideon Rathbone. Thanks so much for stopping by. Wyatt, man, this has been enlightening and engaging and exciting, and I'm the man of alliteration. I'm all that. But thank you so much for stopping by, Wyatt.
Thanks for having me.
And listen, when the new book drops out, when you drop the new book, you have got to come back.
Oh, all right. Thanks.
My pleasure. Take care, my friend.
You too.
Yeah. So, y'all, there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page at WyattEvans.com, the go-to destination for LGBTQ plus news, features, commentary, and entertainment. WyattEvans.com is visited by more than 100 countries on the regular. All I can say to that is, hey, baby, And at WyattEvans.com, you'll find my Smoking Hot, HAWT Hot, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. And as you just saw on the top, the newest installment is called Shattered. I said Shattered. And y'all, Shattered is full of action, danger, intrigue, sexually charged situations, passion, and all of the wonderful elements that you're used to in the Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. So get your new copy of Shattered. Now you can follow me, your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, all across social media, and poof, is right there for you to peruse, like TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any comments or whatever, you can hit me up at wyattonair@gmail.com. So until next time, y'all, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof. I said woof.